everyone, it is I, your favorite perfect being, and today I'm back with another reaction video. However, today we're reacting to an Alex Bale production. You may know him as the SpongeBob Theory Guy. Speaking of which, we will be reacting to those on the channel very soon. But today, he uploaded yesterday a Blue's Clues theory. Why Blue's Clues is a fantasy inside of Law and Order. And I've seen people react to his theories, and I gotta admit, I am intrigued, so I'm gonna be reacting to his theories as well. So, if you're an Alex Bale fan, please check out the original video down below. Make sure to comment on that like button and spear bomb that subscribe button. This is a long reaction. Let's get this perfect reaction started, shall we? Alright, we got the Blue's Clues house.
Hi there.
Alex Bale!
Blue's Clues is an educational children's TV show about a man named Steve who lives in a magical world where he spends his day talking to inanimate objects, jumping through picture frames, and trying to find clues to help understand his magical blue doll. Law & Order is a gritty, realistic police procedural/legal drama that involves New York City homicide detectives trying to solve murders and prosecute criminals. These two shows are very different.
What does Blue's Clues have to do with that?
You cannot find two shows more polar opposite
than Blue's Clues. This guy has got to play a big game of connect the dots for me.
Despite this, not only do I believe that these two shows exist in the same universe, but I'm also going to be proving that the entire Blue's Clues show is actually just a fantasy inside of the mind of a single Law & Order side character. Yes, I am being serious. I know that sounds crazy, but just stick with me, because I'm pretty sure that I have discovered a 29-year-old secret that has never been talked about before today. Get ready, because this is the Blue's Clues Law & Order theory.
What? Hey, yo. Everybody make sure you comment on that like button and spear bomb that subscribe button. Yo. What does Blue's Clues have to do with Law and Order though, man? Is Steve and Joe alright? Hey. What's up with Blue? Is Magenta okay?
By far, the most common type of fan theory is the dream theory. The idea that everything happening in a story is actually all just inside of a character's head, whether they're stuck in a coma, or they're dreaming, or hallucinating, or they're actually dead. Pretty much every piece of media has some kind of dream theory.
I might have a lot more to react to than I thought.
Low-hanging fruit of fan theories. You can just apply it to literally anything, and usually there's never actually any evidence besides, "Whoa, this show is so crazy and unrealistic, that must mean it's a dream!" And surprisingly, the show that seems to have the most of these types of fan theories is Blue's Clues.
Why Blue's Clues,
Steve is actually schizophrenic, Steve is actually in a mental asylum, Steve is actually a drug addict, Steve is actually in prison, Steve is actually a murderer who killed his parents. Oh my god. Even I made a parody of these theories back in 2017.
Damn.
So yeah, it's a pretty basic, normal kid show.
Steve, a 30-year-old schizophrenic who killed his parents, pretends to be a kid. You know, that was before I dedicated my life to making fan theories about kid shows. And look, I understand the appeal of these types of theories. It's fun to take something innocent from your childhood and give it a dark, edgy plot twist. That's kind of literally my job right now. But why are there so many of these theories about specifically Blue's Clues? Well, I think it's because everything about this show has always felt fake. Steve is the only real person in this world. He looks like a young adult, but he acts like a child. And he lives alone in a house where he spends his day jumping into picture frames or talking to unseen voices or inanimate objects. It just kind of sounds like I'm describing someone who is experiencing some kind of false reality. Even the way Steve moves around is strange. He never actually leaves the room. He just kind of pretends to walk in place while this fantasy world moves around him.
Come on.
So wait, do you think
that was more of a filming limitation, but it still adds to this feeling of fakeness. But
Like,
other than these
is he
surface
a
level
guy
weird
stuck in the
vibes
book?
the show gives off, there's never actually been any strong evidence to prove one of these theories. And believe me,
What the
I
hell?
and others have looked. It has been 28 years since this show first came out. You know, you'd think if there was actually some kind of smoking gun here, we would have found it by now. But what if that's because we've all been looking in the wrong place?
Wait,
So,
where
the other day, I
should we have
stumbled
been
upon
looking,
an
Alex? What are you
interesting
talking
piece
about?
of Blue's Clues trivia. A year after Steve Burns filmed the Blue's Clues pilot, he had a small role in an
What?
episode of Law and Order. And I thought the idea
Wait,
of
you're
seeing
saying-
Steve from Blue's Clues in a gritty, realistic cop show was kind of funny. So I decided to
Wait.
track down the 1995
Really?
episode titled Cruel and Unusual.
I never knew about
Just a
this.
heads up, this episode deals with some pretty serious subject matter, so
Yeah.
please proceed with caution. In this episode, Steve Burns plays a kid with autism named Kevin
What?
Jeffries.
Good morning, how are you?
Wait, I
Great.
remember
What
this
time is it?
episode.
10:15. No.
I remember this episode.
We learn that Kevin has trouble communicating with others and often harms himself. So his parents send him to live in a children's behavioral clinic.
Just what was the
I've seen this
behavioral clinic
episode.
doing for him?
When Kevin was 10, he started to hurt himself.
We didn't know what to do. We couldn't keep Kevin here. We had to send him away.
We later find out that the doctors at this clinic were horribly mistreating him by giving him intense electroshock therapy and forcing
the
him to wear
hell?
a sensory deprivation helmet for days.
He kept Kathy
That
in
is
this
horrible.
helmet for 3 straight days. This helmet cut off the blood supply to our daughter's brain.
The episode starts with Kevin after he's escaped from the facility, but tragically he gets
Man,
arrested and later succumbs to the
people are
injuries
more
sustained from his
monsters
abuse
than the
and
people,
dies.
that create biological androids.
And the rest of the episode follows the detectives investigating his death. So yeah, this is a very sad and serious episode, and it deals with some real systemic issues that are still a problem today. And like I was saying, this show is clearly very, very different than Blue's Clues.
Yeah,
But what
seriously,
I
so
find
please
interesting
draw
about
your
this is
comparison
that
because
for
it's
years,
not making
people
sense,
have been trying to
although
prove that
the
Steve is
actor
actually in
sharing a role in
prison
that
or a
is
mental facility, and
interesting.
now we have this piece of media
I never
where we
knew
see
that was
Steve's
him,
actor
but
in
now
that
I
exact
get it.
position, and as far as I'm aware, no one's ever really talked about this. I mean, sure, Kevin's not schizophrenic, he has autism, but seeing as how he was being abused and put into sensory deprivation for days where he couldn't hear or see anything, you can kind of imagine that anyone in that position might try to escape to some kind of fantasy inside of their head. So yeah, I thought
I
this
mean,
was
that
an
does
interesting
make sense.
coincidence. But at the end of the day, that's kinda all it was. Like, obviously, just because the same actor shows up in 2 different shows doesn't mean they're actually connected. But then, I took a closer look at this episode, and I started to notice more and more weird similarities between Kevin and Steve.
What you talking about, Alex?
At first, it just started with some little things. We are told by Kevin's parents that he was learning to draw.
Thanks to him, Kevin was learning to draw.
And in every episode of Blue's Clues, Steve draws in his handy-dandy notebook.
Our handy dandy notebook. Let's draw a rectangle, and there, cheese.
Okay, but so what? Lots of kids like to draw. But we are also told that when Kevin harmed himself, he was strapped to a chair.
We put them in a chair, and then we hold them there using soft cuffs.
And in every episode of Blue's Clues, Steve spends a lot of time in his thinking chair.
We're ready to sit in our...
no.
Now that we're in our thinking chair, let's think.
And then, when Kevin escaped
Man,
the facility,
that-
he kept
that's
asking people
brutal.
what time it was.
That is
time
a
is it?
brutal comparison, man.
10:15. What time?
How you doing
Everybody, comment on how that
Now,
like
it is
button and
common
spear
for
button
some
that
people with
subscribe
autism
button if
to
you want me to
rely
react
on
to more of
specific
Alex
schedules
Bale's
or
productions.
routines, but
And be
what
sure to
time
check
it
out the
is
original video
also
down below.
really important in Blue's Clues.
What time is it?
What time is it now?
Steve has a cleanup time,
We just had cleanup time.
a nap time.
It's Blue's nap time.
Now it's time for so long. There's a talking clock. And most of all, every day, Steve has mail time.
Yo.
Hey, Blue, the mail's
here.
So yeah,
hearing
there's
that
some
as a
weird
kid versus hearing
similarities
that
here,
as an
but
adult,
nothing actually
that
concrete.
sounds like a jail
I didn't really
visit.
start to take any of this seriously.
That
until
actually does
I
sound
realized
odd, having
after
your
Kevin
mail
escaped, we were told that he
delivered
went to a
rather
movie
than
theater. And
given
guess
to
what
you
he
through
did
your mailbox.
in the theater?
Movie started at 10,
Someone
he was out of here by
actively
10 after. Got out
chanting
of his
mail
seat, walked into the
time
screen.
just
Kevin
makes it
got
awkward
out of
getting
his
your
seat
mail.
and tried to walk into the screen. Doesn't that sound exactly like Steve Blueska-doing into a picture?
Blueska-doo, we can too.
Got out of his seat, walked into the screen.
This kind of feels like more than a coincidence. So this is when I first started to consider, is it really possible that Kevin Jeffries from Law & Order is the real Steve, and Blue's Clues is all a fantasy he created to escape his abusive reality? Okay, I know you're not convinced yet, and
Please,
to be honest,
draw
neither
the
was
comparison. I
but
want
don't
to
worry,
know how this
we are
is
just getting started.
actually.
Kevin's behavioral clinic is in New York City, and the
I'm
one
following
time
you so far,
characters
Alex.
actually
Make it
leave
make
the
sense.
Blue's Clues fantasy world and go to the real world, they end up in New York.
Blue's Clues in New York
I
City?
never saw this movie.
This is epic!
Also, in the very first episode of Blue's Clues, we can see a newspaper from the New York Times inside of Steve's house, strongly implying that's actually where he lives. We can also see objects from Blue's Clues in Kevin's life. In Kevin's parents' house, we see a very large salt and pepper shaker, just like Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper.
Hi, Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Steve.
And in the clinic, we can see a red bucket, just like Steve's friend, Bale.
Hello, Bale.
Hi, Steve.
Also, when Steve left the show to go to college, he left on a blue bus.
Why a blue bus,
And when
though?
Kevin escaped the clinic, in his pocket, he had a schedule for the Greyhound.
Here you go. Amtrak schedule, Greyhound schedules.
Which is also a blue bus. Alright, those are some more interesting connections, but you're probably still not
Those
completely
are
sold
pretty
yet, right?
parallel.
Well, check this out. When Steve eventually left the show to go to college, he was replaced by his younger brother, Joe.
Oh, hi.
Hold up.
It's me, Steve's brother, Joe.
And later, Joe got replaced by their cousin, Josh.
Hi, it's me, Josh.
And not only does Kevin also have a younger brother, but at the clinic, there is a nurse named Joe.
What's your name?
Joe
Garvey. Joe Garvey, you're under arrest for assault.
And an occupational therapist named Josh.
Take a look at the amended complaint. An occupational therapist, Josh Bingham, was dropped.
Okay,
I
Alex,
think
I'm
that
behind
Kevin
you.
is
What
taking
the hell?
aspects from his real life, like the objects or
What
the
the-
names of the people
what
working at the clinic, and
what-
applying
what-
them to his
what-
fantasy. Also, this one is less impressive, but the name Kevin is also the name of the Blue's Clues UK host.
Hello out there. It's me,
Okay.
Kevin.
Also, check this out. Kevin's behavioral clinic has the same initials as Blue's Clues. Yeah? That one's also not that impressive, I know. But wait. If this theory
No, but you still
is
got me
true,
so far.
and all
Okay,
of this is just inside of Kevin's head, then
This
why does the
is
main
a
character
lot
of
for me
his
to process
fantasy
as
keep
I watched
changing?
this as a kid, but
Come on in.
wow.
Hi, come on in. Hi, come on in.
Well, at first, I
Wow.
thought maybe Joe and Josh could actually just be from two different kids who took Kevin's spot
Everybody
in the
come
clinic
at me
after
on
he
that
died,
like button and
but
spit
the
upon that
clinic gets
subscribe
shut down
button
at the
if you
end
want me to
of the
react to
episode.
more.
You made them close the clinic.
So they would all have to be from Kevin, but why? Well, we're told that Kevin has tried to escape from the clinic before.
Well, we called the police this morning as soon as the clinic told us that Kevin ran away. He's done this before.
So what if every time a host leaves Blue's Clues, it's actually Kevin trying to escape the clinic, and when he's inevitably put back inside,
He's done this before.
his fantasy resets with a new Blue's Clues host.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
no.
Come on in. Hi, come on in.
Okay, so there is a
Yo.
surprising amount of connections here. You can't deny that. But it
yeah,
still kind of feels
there
like
are.
we're missing something. Like, I can see why Kevin would imagine a fun, colorful world to escape his abuse, but why is Kevin's fantasy so focused on playing a scavenger hunt game with a blue dog? As far as I could tell,
that
there's
is my
nothing
main
similar to
question.
that
What does
in this
blue have to
episode.
do with it?
Well, I think to answer this, we need to take a closer look at what Blue's Clues actually is. At the beginning of the Law and Order episode,
what
Kevin's
is
doctor
it?
explained to the detectives why
what's
Kevin
Blue's Clues
harmed
about
himself.
then? If it's not about Blues.
It's frustration because of their inability to communicate.
It's frustrations because of his inability to communicate. Now, autism is a spectrum, and it's a lot more complicated and nuanced than the way TV shows like this tend to portray it. But it is true that some people with autism have varying levels of difficulty communicating. And I think this becomes interesting when we take a look at what Blue's Clues actually is.
Well, what story should we tell? Great idea. We'll play Blue's Clues to figure out what story Blue wants us to tell.
It's a game where you try to understand Blue, a character who has an inability to communicate. This is literally the entire premise of the show. So I think that this is telling us that Blue represents the side of Kevin who struggles to communicate with others. Okay, but where did the idea for a blue dog come from? Like I said, I couldn't find any references to dogs in this episode. The closest visual was this vaguely blue drawing in Kevin's room that I can't really make out, or this teddy bear that kind of had a similar pattern to Blue, but nothing really concrete, which is weird because Blue is such a major part of this fantasy. But then I realized it doesn't matter if we can't find a direct connection, because in Blue's Clues, Steve didn't actually adopt Blue. In a flashback episode of Blue's Clues, we learned that when Steve was younger, he read a book about a blue dog.
It's a book about a puppy.
Which caused Blue to magically come to life. And I think this is also probably what happened with Kevin. We see that the children's behavioral clinic is full of what we can reasonably assume are children's books. Maybe there's a book in here that also gave Kevin the idea for a blue dog, just like Steve. In fact, this idea of a children's book giving Kevin ideas for his fantasy is exactly what we see at the start of the Blue's Clues intro.
No way.
Hi, it's me, Steve.
Every single episode of Blue's Clues starts with a stack of children's books in the real world, before going inside of a book called Blue's Clues.
I was more on track at the beginning than I thought I was.
The show literally tells us every episode that Steve's world is fake and comes from a book. And I think this real world full of children's books is actually the Law and Order behavioral
I was a
clinic.
Closer guess at the beginning than I thought I was.
If this is true, that also means that there's probably a book literally called Blue's Clues in the clinic that Kevin is basing his fantasy off of. So even if we never see a blue dog or even hear the name Steve in this Law and Order episode, Kevin still could have gotten all of those ideas from an existing Blue's Clues book in the clinic. Now, the only thing that doesn't really fit with this idea is mail time.
Hello, mailbox.
Hi, Steve. Have I got a letter for you?
Sure, maybe the talking purple mailbox was just something from the book, but there's no way Steve watching videos of kids in the real world would be something in a children's book.
Look, it's a letter from our friends.
Hi, Steve. This is where we play with our blocks. This goes that way.
So, what are these videos? Well, the behavioral clinic is full of other children.
You want to see what a good day is for some of these kids?
So, I think these videos are Kevin's perception of the other kids. There is just an undeniable amount of connections and similarities between this episode and this show. It just really feels like Blue's Clues is all a fantasy inside of Kevin Jeffries' head. But
I mean,
at this point, you're probably wondering,
your other theories do have
merit. Could any of this actually be intentional? Like, if this theory is true, does that mean that the entire plot of Blue's Clues was actually secretly based on this one random episode of Law and Order? I'll admit,
if that's the case, that's
unlikely,
wild, man.
especially since this episode came out a year after the Blue's Clues pilot was filmed. I think it's a lot more likely that if this was intentional, then it was probably just the Law and Order creators deciding to secretly connect these two shows on their own. Maybe just because they thought it would be funny, I don't know. Or maybe it's some weird mixture of both. Because even years after this episode came out, Blue's Clues does still seem to weirdly line up with it. I honestly don't know. And to be fair, this could all still just be a bunch of weird coincidences, and that's it. But regardless of the creator's intent, it still works, you know? And it makes talking about Blu's Clues a lot more interesting. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of the point of all of these edgy Blu's Clues fan theories. And this was originally where I planned on ending this video. But there was still one lingering question that was bothering me. If Blu's Clues really is just inside of Kevin Jeffries' head, then what about when Kevin died at the beginning of the episode? I mean, I guess we can just say that the entire Blu's Clues timeline takes place before Kevin's death, and if the show ever gets canceled, then we can just say that that is when Kevin died and the fantasy ended. But what if I told you we've already seen Kevin's death inside of Blu's Clues? So I recently watched the new Blu's Clues movie from 2022 called Blues Big
There's
City
no way
Adventure.
somebody died in Blues
Not
Clues,
only
Kevin.
that I find even more similarities between this movie and the show,
there's no
but
way
I believe
that somebody
this
died in
movie
Blues Clues,
is showing
Alex.
us the day
Alex
that
Bale,
Kevin died
you're telling
and
me
the
somebody
true
died in
end
Blues Clues.
of the Blues Clues timeline.
What?
So
how does
this
that
movie
even work?
is about Josh, the newest host of Blues Clues, going on a big adventure to audition for a Broadway musical in New York City.
Blue? We are definitely not in storybook world anymore.
It's kind of what you'd expect
Either way,
out
it
of
was
a
a great
modern-day
show when
Blues
I was a
Clues
kid.
movie. He goes on a journey to the real world and gets lost. There's lots of wacky hijinks, but in the end, he finds his way and gets the part.
We want you to be the star of our Broadway show.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But if you watch this movie with this theory in mind, so many things take on a whole new meaning. The first thing that immediately caught me off guard was the opening song.
It's a brand new day.
This song is about starting the day, and Josh keeps saying, "Good morning."
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Blue.
And literally, the first thing we hear Kevin Jeffries say is, "Good morning."
So is Donovan. Good morning, how are you?
Despite it clearly being night, we also hear this line in Josh's song.
Line up,
this life is just like a beautiful dream.
This life is just like a beautiful dream. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a little sus.
And while Josh sings, the other characters keep telling him to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
It's a brand new day.
Right away, this movie feels different, like it's trying to draw attention to the fact that this world is just Kevin's fantasy, and it's time for him to leave it. Josh leaves his fantasy world to go to the audition in New York, just like how Kevin escapes the clinic at the start of the episode. And just like Kevin, Josh immediately seems very disoriented by the outside world.
Yo, Kamehameha that like button and spear button that subscribe button if you want me to react to more.
Until, of course, his fantasy starts to take over to protect him from reality.
Wait, what? I didn't see the movie. I don't know about a lot of these.
But what's interesting about this movie is that for the very first time ever, we get these little glimpses of Blues Clues from other people's perspectives.
Don't you think so, Madam Mustard? Oh? Lovely to meet you.
Wow.
Mr. Salt! Mrs. Pepper! Am I glad to see you? Oh my God!
Like I said, this movie feels different. We learn that Josh's audition is at 3 o'clock, and the whole movie is just him trying to find the audition before time runs out.
It's almost time for my audition. Oh my gosh. We don't have much time, Blue.
Could this be why Kevin kept asking people what time it was?
What time is it? What time? What time?
Josh also doesn't know where his audition is. All he knows is that it's in a theater somewhere.
Excuse me. Do you know the address to the theater? Which theater? I don't know which theater.
Maybe this is why Kevin went to a movie theater after he escaped, because he thought it was his Broadway audition. Now, in the Law & Order episode, shortly after leaving the theater, Kevin gets arrested and then tragically dies in police custody. But that's not what happens in this movie. Josh goes to the theater and gets the part.
We want you to be the star of our Broadway show.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But instead of him leaving and dying like Kevin, we immediately cut to him performing the musical in a big climactic finale.
My dream is a reality.
Well, that's nice, right?
So, if this movie really is Kevin's final escape, then what if this is what Kevin experiences as he dies?
Oh, that is dark.
A massive final magical song will be surrounded by all of the friends from his fantasy, the only people who ever really understood him. Even the old hosts show up for this final send-off for Kevin.
And thank you for making this a day and an adventure that I will never forget.
I'll never forget how you helped me find all those clues. Thanks again for all your help.
No, really. Now it's over. So long.
Damn.
And that is sadly where Kevin Jeffries' story ends. Now, I know this final movie theory maybe doesn't have as much evidence as the rest of my theory, but regardless, I like thinking that maybe Kevin found some peace in his final moments. And yeah,
Man,
I know
so
that this movie came out 27 years after the Law & Order episode, so it's probably a stretch to say that they're still connected. Wait, is that fucking B.D. Wong?
I'm the director of Rainbow Puppy's Broadway musical.
B.D. Wong from Law & Order SVU is the fucking director of Josh's musical?
I'm not entirely comfortable labeling the suspect a serial killer.
We want you to be the star of our Broadway show.
Holy shit!
We just figured out Blue's Clues. We just figured out Blue's Clues. We just figured out Blue's Clues.
Because this is my job. This is actually my job. Alright, that is my theory. Thank you so much for watching.
You're welcome.
Hope I didn't ruin Blue's Clues for you. Hey, thanks for 1 million subscribers. That's really cool.
Not really,
YouTube
but
sent me this big golden rectangle.
I mean,
I got
most
that now.
shows
Also,
ruin
you know,
themselves
Steve
over
Burns
time.
Is kind of active on the internet these days, so
everybody
if
make
by
sure you
some
check out the
chance
original
you happen
video.
to see this
Comment on how that
Steve
like
Blue's
button and
Clues,
spirit bomb that
I'm
subscribe
sure we would
button.
all love to
Check
hear
out
your
Alex
thoughts
Bale.
on this
Show him
theory,
your
even if
support.
that's just him calling me crazy. I'm fine. I'll take it. I got more fan theories on the way. I'm doing a High School Musical one. Maybe a Breaking Bad one. Seemed like people were interested in that. And I've got a bunch of other ideas I'm working on too. So subscribe to catch those. Make sure you hit the bell icon because sometimes YouTube just randomly decides not to tell people when I upload. Hello,
yo, for real, same. I've got like 5K subs, and I feel like
speaking of which,
only
I recently posted a
notified.
compilation of all of the Don't Feed the Muse web series episodes into one long film, and it's got a bunch of brand new content in it. So
I'll be
check that out if
reacting
you're
to
interested.
those
Thank you
SpongeBob
to
theories
all the
very
patrons who
soon,
support
everybody.
this channel.
So keep
if you
an
sign
eye
up to my
out.
Patreon, you can get access to videos early, behind-the-scenes content, and your name at the end of the video. Look at all these names. This could be you. That could be you. Now it's time for So Long. Thanks for doing your part. I will see you next time.
See you next time, Alex Bale. Everybody, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. I will admit, the whole Steve being in the book thing, Kevin being in the book, either way, I was surprised that I was a little more on the nose than I thought I was, but either way, I agree with him. I hope that his final moments were peaceful, and I hope, that Alex Bale uploads more theories so I can react to them. I'll admit, a lot of them are very intriguing, and seeing how he actually determines what makes sense with what, I can see the parallels in what he's drawing. Everybody, I hope you all have a perfect day. Again, comment on that like button and spirit button that subscribe button. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye, humans.